Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here. You know the name of the show, Weekend Appointment, the show where we answer your legal questions. 540-0580. That's the talk line number, 540-0580. A lot of people don't know this, Shane, but as you know, they used to carry Penn State here on WHP 580, and I'm told that our show was so popular that we actually overtook Penn State in popularity, and that's why you have to listen to me instead of Penn State this afternoon. And that might be rumor and conjecture, but as long as somebody said it, I'm just going to run with it, folks. 540-0580. If you're not listening to the Penn State game and you're listening to the show, what I want you to do is call in with a legal question now. What do you want to talk about? Maybe a divorce, maybe a personal injury. And, of course, as you know, throughout the week, people post on weekendappointment.com, and we get a lot of questions there, and I'll take a few of those today. I've answered a few of them during the week. Sometimes people go to Weekend Appointment to look up my phone number, and you're free to do that. You can call, come in and see us anytime during the week. We've got lawyers that handle all areas of practice. We do bankruptcies. We do family law. We do a lot of personal injury. We do a lot of criminal defense. The newspaper seems to write about the criminal defense the most, so some people think that's all we do, but that's not the case. We do a little of everything, but if we don't do it, we'll point you in the right direction. And while I'm going to thank them again later in the show, but I want to put out a big shout-out to Laurel Run Outfitters. They're a goose and waterfowling outfit, and they took me goose hunting this morning. Had a great time. I had my supplies from my other favorite waterfowling shop, Shooting the X, which is a shop in Carlisle. And we put them up on weekendappointment.com as friends of the show. And I really, really encourage you, if you haven't hunted geese, if you have not hunted geese before, or you haven't hunted ducks before, or you're a seasoned waterfowler and you just want to have a really good experience, contact Brian with Laurel Run. Just tell him I sent you. That way maybe he'll let me go hunting with him one more time. But contact Brian over there. You know, the early goose season is in now. It's a tough season to hunt, but a guy like Brian can put you on the geese. Ron, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. How are you today?
Good. What's going on?
Good. I'm sorry I have you on speakerphone. My son's in the car with me here, and so I thought I'd let him listen to while we talk.
Okay.
I called you a couple of times before on the judges and Supreme Court issue, and I always seem to get you at the end of the show because I forgot that you only have an hour. I think you need 3 hours.
You got me at the beginning. That's good.
Yeah. You had explained to me that the judges and Supreme Court justices have a lot of discretion in their decisions because, of course, every case is quite unique. But I was wondering about the limits of a judge or a justice's how they can make their decisions because of the case in London, Connecticut 3 summers ago, the Kelo case on eminent domain. It seemed like with that case, it sort of demonstrated that the justices can do almost anything that they want, and there's got to be some control or limits to them. And that's what I was curious about.
Well, the short answer is I think the case you're talking about is the one where the Supreme Court said that townships have the power of eminent domain and states can exercise eminent domain. I should say states have the power of eminent domain, and they can exercise it in any framework they want, and that if they want to take land for the common good, but they've decided that the common good is to, take somebody's land, expropriate it, and then sell it to a developer, that was acceptable. Is that the case you're talking about?
That's exactly the one. It was a private developer.
And the issue there is states' powers. So it's interesting because some people would tell you, well, they'd say, Ron, the Supreme Court's supposed to not interfere with the power of the state whenever possible. So remember, we have all these crazy Texans and Montanans and people in Perry County, and maybe a little bit myself, who believe that Shane's waving his arms because I made a Perry County joke over there. I think he's from Perry County, folks. The long and short of it, though, is, people say states' rights. And so, Ron, think about this. What the Supreme Court said was we're not going to limit the power of the states based on the federal Constitution. And if you're a strict constructionist and you really believe in states' rights, then you have to kind of applaud that decision because what they're saying is it's up to each state to decide the law of eminent domain. On the other hand, other people said, well, yeah, but shouldn't the Supreme Court weigh in and say that shouldn't there be a framework to it and it should be only for the public good? And they said, well, the Constitution only speaks to the issue in one way, which is that you will have due process and just compensation. And so the power of eminent domain, as limited by the United States Constitution, is not spelled out to be any more than just that. Due process, which just means the right to be heard, doesn't mean the right to win, as my law school professor always used to remind us. He'd always say, due process really doesn't mean much except you can be heard. Even if the law says you're already going to lose, you still can be heard.
I see.
And then the other argument was, okay, just compensation, and as long as the state is giving you or has a system of putting you with just compensation, so it's interesting because that decision, while a lot of people felt it was far-reaching, it was actually a very limited decision because the Supreme Court said we're not going to find anything new in the Constitution that isn't literally written in there to protect people from eminent domain. I know.
It was an interesting case, especially for people like me who are not trained in law, but assumed that it was for the greater public good meant generally what was most generally accepted by the government buildings and schools and airports and et cetera.
Yeah, and that's always an interesting question too, because let me give you an example. Airports, roads, schools, things like that. Those are sometimes really quasi-commercial enterprises in and of themselves, and while they're run by the government, it seems like you go to an airport anymore and it looks more like a mall on the inside than it does anything else in terms of all the stores and who's making all that money.
Right. Primary business being transportation, but the auxiliary businesses or ancillary businesses are quite profitable.
Right. And it always seems like I would bet it's like our timber. The United States has a big timbering operation where federal land gets timbered, and you find out that the government makes almost no money on it. So I'm always suspicious of government-run projects about whether they're actually making money on them or not. But I guess that's a side note. So Ron, I just want to remind people out there, my talk line number is 540-0580. Do you have any other cases you want to comment on this holiday weekend?
I'll have to call you back another time. I can't think of it, and I got to get back to work at Grandma's.
All right, Ron. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for remembering that the show starts at 2, ends at 3.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Have a great holiday, Ron.
You too. Bye-bye.
Hey, folks, you got a legal question, you got a legal issue. I want you to go throughout the week to weekendappointment.com. I want you to post it there, and we'll answer it on the air. I had one guy post a question. He wanted to know about uninsured motorist coverage. We'll talk about that when we get back from break. But he's not going to be in town, so I posted an answer for him, and he wants to so he's not going to hear the show right now, but we're going to post an answer for him on the website, which we will do throughout the week if you post your questions on there. So when I get back from break, we'll go back to a few questions from the website. We'll take some callers. I know it looks like Shane's screening somebody right now. 540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here. As you know, the show's Weekend Appointment, the show where we answer your legal questions here on the air. 540-0580. That's my talk line number. Whatever you want to talk about. You want to comment on some courts, you want to talk about gun rights, or more importantly, you want to get a legal problem answered or maybe get some ideas on how to solve yours. We're happy to help you here.
No one really wants to hear you talk the whole time.
Oh, is that what you're telling me? Oh, see, I made a Perry County joke, and now my producer's mad at me.
Right, that hurts. That hurts me right on my chest. Right in my chest is where it hurts.
I have a dump button for everybody else, but I don't think I can dump him because he's got the control in the booth. John, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
My question is, it's kind of complicated. I have two children that I pay support for that live with their mother, my ex-wife.
Okay.
If you're familiar, the laws in Pennsylvania are the primary custodial parent is responsible for the first $250 per year per child.
Of unreimbursed medical expenses.
Exactly. I have bills. They're sent to me because I provide the insurance. The insurance is in my name. I have a bill from February that my ex-wife won't pay and another one from April that she won't pay.
Okay.
To go through domestic relations, I have to pay the bills, send her a certified letter. If she doesn't respond, then I have to take a day off work to go to domestic relations to have a hearing. Is there any other way around that?
Well, the short answer is, what county are you in?
Lancaster.
Okay. Yeah, every county does it a little differently. It would seem to me, I don't know why you have to pay them and reduce it to payment, and I don't know why you'd actually have to go to the hearing, because in my experience, usually if you send those bills along to most of the county domestic relations officers, they will pass them along to the payee and say you need to pay these. And then if the person doesn't pay them, they'll schedule an enforcement hearing.
Okay.
I would try that. Get a hold of your caseworker, case manager, whatever they call the person.
Maybe if I can just send copies of the bills to them.
And ask them. And sometimes, because you know what, they're thinking the same thing you are. What a waste of time. And so sometimes they'll send it out with a little nasty gram that says, hey, well, you know, I can bring you in here and you're entitled. Remember I said this a minute ago to the other fellow. You're entitled to due process. You have the right to be heard. But you have to pay them because you're right. It's the first $250 of unreimbursed medicals per calendar year, by the way.
Right.
So
I even went as far as to say to her, just call the provider and have the bills put in your name.
Right.
You can make payment arrangements and do what you want. But she won't even do that.
Yeah. And so my theory on that is, and you know the answer is hold her to it, and I understand it's going to create a problem for you, but maybe if you drag her back once, she'll think about it the second time too. But try to use domestic relations informally. Use your caseworker over there, and like I say, a lot of times they'll send out a request, and I wouldn't pay them. That ultimately, if you pay them, then I would absolutely pursue it. And of course, they're in your name, so you don't want to leave it tailing out there.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry, I don't have a better answer than that.
Yeah. It's domestic relations. It's tough to get a better answer.
Yeah, it really is.
Complicated system.
But the good news is, like I say, at least in my experience, we've usually been able to handle those with a letter to domestic relations saying, hey, here's the outstanding medicals we're owed reimbursement on. And sometimes it's not even the first $250 because as we should explain to the listeners, and as you know, we then split the remainder based on the percentage of the income from that theoretical household income number.
Right.
And so we also have reimbursement due, partial reimbursements due later on, and we sometimes run into people who won't pay those either, and we end up enforcing $800 or $700 as opposed to what sounds like a couple hundred for you.
Great. All right. Thank you for your help.
All right. Good luck. Happy holiday. Yeah. I mean, what fun. What fun. And of course, he's right. It takes time. But the answer is if you let her get away with it now, she'll keep doing it. So I recommend you push on that. Talk line number is 540-0580, 540-0580. Jason, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Good. Happy holiday.
Happy holiday to you, too. I hope you're enjoying your weekend.
I went goose hunting this morning.
Goose hunting?
Yeah. I had a good time.
I'm on my way to Walmart to pick up groceries. So.
Okay.
Anyhow, there's been a lot of talk lately about the federal government overstepping its bounds, both on talk radio, the internet, blogosphere, cable news, and all this. And you hear a lot of people talk about the 10th Amendment, and I find it interesting that in some of the liberal blogs, they're actually equating the 10th Amendment people to birthers. They're calling tenthers, or they're calling people that are pushing the 10th Amendment tenthers, just like birthers. Have you seen that?
I've heard that. Well, that's the new thing to do. Basically, is to claim that anybody that has an idea that might not agree with yours, and particularly if it's a conservative idea, to say that they are like the birthers.
But you have to admire the genius of that. But in any case, in the Constitution, the founding fathers enumerated, I believe, 20 roles specifically to the federal government. Is it 20?
Right. If you got a number, it's what, I wouldn't be to know the exact number, but I understand exactly what you're saying is, and if you if you listen to, for instance, Jefferson and I think I heard the guy that was filling in for Rush the other day, the British fella, was talking about this, and I believe he was talking about the concept of the general welfare. There is a general welfare clause in the Constitution, which could be and include all. But Jefferson and the others talked about it at the time and said, the general welfare clause can't really mean the general welfare because otherwise Congress would have the power to regulate everything, and we wouldn't have given the federal government limited powers.
Yeah, that's one item that's been kind of misconstrued purposefully. And the general welfare thing, that appears right in the preamble, actually. But the difference is between general welfare and special welfare. They're two totally different things. But what I've been kind of thinking about is the states. Some of the states are starting to pass resolutions, on the 10th Amendment and whatnot, And the founding fathers, they did understand that there were certain powers that the federal government, the post office, for instance, raising an army, that the federal government was going to be the best thing that suited to. And what we need to do, I think, is actually talk about amnestying the federal government on some of the powers that they've assumed unconstitutionally over the years. For instance, things like the FAA, naturally the states couldn't do that. The FCC, the states couldn't manage the Internet. Those things need to be done, through some point of singularity.
Right.
And I think that we literally need to amnesty the federal government on some of the powers that it's taken, take some of them away. Maybe instead of 20 enumerated powers, we'll give them 25 or 30. But that has to be it. This trend has to end. It's been this kind of a frog in the boiling pot usurpation for the last 100 years, which really started in earnest maybe under the Hoover administration, I think.
And I'll tell you, and I always remind people this, though, and it's important that if you're a conservative, and I consider myself a libertarian and fairly conservative, but you have to remember that true conservatism, true liberal, or I should say true libertarianism, when you reserve federal powers means you give the states a lot more self-determination. So, for instance, if you're anti-abortion, you have to live with the fact that by withdrawing the federal power or the federal regulation of it, if Oklahoma or Idaho or Oregon wants to, allow late-term abortions, then that's their prerogative. And if Oregon, which wants to allow euthanasia, wants to do it, then you allow that. And if South Carolina wants to ban both of them, then you allow that. And so I always remind people, though, you got to, and that's where people get caught up because they get in a pet issue and they say, well, the federal government should prevent this or do that. And you say, well, if everybody thinks the federal government should do this or do that, then suddenly the federal government has all kinds of power and nobody that wants to put the brakes on it.
What's funny, too, is the detractors of federalism, what they point out is kind of the failures that we have in California. And you'll hear Bill Maher says this, they didn't foresee states with 38 million people. I'll tell you what, if the founding fathers saw California with 38 million people, they would probably say, those people are underrepresented in the Senate. You need to break that up into 2 or 3 states.
Right.
So they're not up. That would be the correct answer for California. I think needs to be 2, maybe 3 states.
And California's real problem, I mean, just to think out loud, actually flows to their finances because they've done at their level. And you're right. They've sort of done. The California government is so large; it's like a mini federal government.
Oh, it is.
And it's been given unfettered power because it actually has state power rather than federal power. So it has all the rights reserved to a state. Yet it's as big as, like you say. It's too big, and as a result, it's sort of taxed and spended itself out of existence, or may yet do that.
It's a country.
Hey,
it amazes me that with this healthcare debate that we hear, they're making these comparisons to these countries in Europe, Britain, and Spain. Spain's healthcare is pretty good, but guess what? Spain isn't nearly as big as California. In GDP, I don't think it is. I'm not sure what the population is, but either way, it's not nearly as big. And it's a completely felonious comparison. It's absurd.
I think, and I'm going to let you go here in a second because I got some other callers waiting, Jason. They might have important legal questions, but I'm enjoying our conversation. I would tell you there is no health care crisis. I don't believe it for a minute.
Agree.
I'm
writing an op-ed on the subject that I'm hoping to publish locally pretty soon. Let me point out one more thing before I go, by the way. To those people that think, we're dumb, those of us on the base, I'm just a computer technician that picked up a couple of books. That's all I do for a living. I don't have a college degree. I'm just an ordinary guy with a couple of books. And anybody can make sense of all this if you just read through history and kind of relate it.
And, Jason, would you do me a favor?
Yeah.
If you go to weekendappointment.com under the U.S. Politics and Law section, feel free to post some commentary up there.
Okay. I just might provide I have time.
Yeah.
Which is, boy, a premium. I've got 4 little kids.
I understand.
Okay.
But if you do some stuff or publish some stuff, at least post it up there. Give us some links so we know where to find it.
Okay, I will. I appreciate that.
All right.
I'll try and hit you up next Saturday.
All right, man. Take care.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Let's see here. 540-0580. Kathy, you're on the air. Kathy, Carl Rominger here.
Yes, hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's going on this holiday weekend for you?
Well, I just have a couple of questions on real estate law.
Okay.
I had signed a lease on a condominium for, I was in it for 3 years. my lease terms were 60 days notice, which I gave my landlord 60 days notice, but I vacated the apartment 30 days later. I bought a house.
Okay.
And I had given them a deposit of $825 when I leased the apartment.
Okay.
I left it more than broom clean. It was clean, and I had professional carpet cleaners come in and clean the carpet. Now they are trying to get $410 from me, which is they claim that they deducted the $825 that I gave them.
Mm-hmm.
Plus they had repair of something in the wall and clean the laundry room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my questions are, I believe under real estate law, they are required to escrow my deposit and give me the interest on that. Is that correct?
I think they are, but I think that's only if they hold it for so long, and I'm trying to remember that. But
Well, they held it for 3 years.
I know you're at least entitled to the full amount back, absent any damage. Whether you get any interest or not, you got me stumped on that for a second. But
I believe under real estate,
I think
law,
you're
they're
right.
required to escrow and give me the interest.
I think they're supposed to give you some interest on that. I agree, but I think there's a term on that. If it's held for a short period of time, I don't think they have to. But I'm thinking out loud. I'd have to look up that subsection. Although, in my experience, we find that most landlords don't escrow the money; they just put it in their operating account, which is always a bad thing to do.
Right.
Because
right.
then how do you pay the tenant back when you're having financial distress? But go ahead,
Right.
Kathy. What's the next question?
Okay, so my question is, they want $410. I was in intensive care unit in July for a couple of days and in the hospital for a week, and I just got a certified letter from them saying that they're going to sue me if I don't send them the $410.
And that $410 is for the alleged repairs?
Yeah, cleaning and repairs, which, they're charging me for light bulbs, and they're claiming they had to vacuum a bedroom that was professionally cleaned by a carpet cleaner. I have the receipts for that. I don't know if it's worth fighting it or just go ahead and pay them.
What I would do, they have to sue you. They'll sue you in front of a district justice.
Right.
Let them sue you. Send them the receipts ahead of time. Say, leave me alone. Here's the receipts. It was professionally cleaned. Go pound sand. And then they'll drag you in front of the district justice if they still want to go forward, then present that to the district justice, and you should find the DJ is going to say to them, or I should say district judge these days, we changed the name a few years ago, they're going to say, she had a professional cleaning job. I'm finding it hard to believe you had to do anything here.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but I would defend. I wouldn't pay anybody $425 because I don't know what you're doing for a living these days, but if a couple hours to save $425 seems like a pretty good turnaround for your time.
Okay.
All right, Kathy?
Thank you very much.
All right, go get him.
Okay, thanks.
Folks, we're going to go to break. When we come back, I'm going to answer your legal questions. Carl Rominger here, weekend appointment. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580. Those are my talk line. That is the talk line number. You call, you ask your legal question on the air, you embarrass yourself horribly if you use your real name or your friend's name. Maybe not. But by the way, for some of you callers, we know it's a fake name. It's okay. You're okay. Just don't everybody pick the same fake name. Alex, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's your question?
Yeah, Carl, I have a small business, and I have a customer that has not paid me. I have a 3-year contract for them to pay me. And I'm wondering if I should be taking the small claims court and also what the statute of limitations is on that.
Well, from the time they stop paying you, that's when you know they're in breach of contract. And the general analysis on breach of contract for statute of limitations, which also abbreviated as SOL, which stands for something out of luck, is 4 years. So I would tell you have 4 years from when you realize they were in breach, which is when they missed a payment or when they declared to you that they're never going to pay again.
Okay.
So, and if the amount...
They never paid me from the beginning, even though they signed the contract, they never paid me. That's it's 4 years.
Right, 4 years from when the breach occurred. And so if they signed the contract and never paid you, arguably the breach occurred then. Now, the only question is whether there's some consideration. Generally, we like to say that some money changes hands when the contract's originally signed, but consideration doesn't have to it's a contract idea in the law, but the idea is if I sign a contract with somebody, we have to exchange value of some sort. And sometimes if there's never been a payment, sometimes we'll say the contract's unenforceable because you didn't get any money, although that's not something you need to worry about. That's something the lawyer would look at for you or the other side would defend on. But I don't think that's going to be a defense in your case. So I would tell you to pursue it. If it's a few $1,000s, what you don't want to spend too much money pursuing a contract if the other side is never going to be able to be forced to pay.
We're talking about maybe $3,000 to $4,000.
Yeah. And the next question is, does the bozo who signed it have any money?
I'm sorry?
Does the guy who signed it have any money?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then it's worth suing.
Pay their bills.
It's worth suing, Alex.
What does it cost roughly to file a claim? And I guess is the right venue small claims court?
Yeah, it would be small claims court, and you're looking at the filing fee of around $100, give or take.
Okay.
The other thing, Alex, and I'll just put this in the back of your head, always if you get through small claims court and you're not happy, or the other thing you can do is you can consider using a collection agency or a collections attorney. They charge a percentage of what they can collect.
Right.
Then you don't put out any money.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Some ideas for you.
Okay, nice.
Have a good holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Folks, I'm going to take another call here in 1 second, but I want to remind you, because I got to thank Brian for taking me goose hunting this morning. He runs Laurel Run Outfitters, and we have him up on the website under Friends of the Show. We also have Mirror's Financial Partners up there as friend of the show. If you have a business you want to become a friend of a show, just send me an email, and we'll talk about how that works. Ollie. Hello, Ollie. Still there? Oh, we must have lost him. Well, I don't know where he went. I did promise you, I had somebody whose car was totaled. They were hit by an uninsured driver, and they're having some problems getting coverage because the person that hit him had no insurance. Hopefully, they're going to have uninsured, underinsured insurance. I don't see any problem for them as long as they carry it. But, folks, if you've waived your uninsured or underinsured insurance, you might have a problem. So make sure you have it. That way, if you get hit by an uninsured driver, there's someone to go after. Because it's not just their job to carry insurance. It's your job to carry insurance, too, and carry insurance on yourself. And the only way you can help yourself with is uninsured or underinsured motor vehicle insurance. And yet, for some reason, a lot of my clients carry good policies for if they hit somebody, but they don't carry any policy at all if they get hit. Alex, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Yeah, I got a question, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Now, a while ago, but let's just say earlier this year, I was in Edinburgh and I made a turn, all right, on a street that I wasn't supposed to turn. It wasn't a one-way. It was just, it wasn't the right turn. I was supposed to take the left I was supposed to take the right instead of making a turn down the street.
Gotcha.
But anyways, the police officer pulled me over. He gave me 6 tickets, and one, he mailed them in the mail. Surprisingly, I was like, "Yo, how did I get 6 tickets?"
Right.
But anyways, it added up to like $1,500 or so. And I went to this safe surrender thing, and when I went to the safe surrender, they had, they said, well, yeah, you got to pay these tickets. You got to take care of these tickets, and everything will be all right.
Right.
I said, all right, well, fine. I'll go ahead and do that. Now, my thing is, when I left Safe Surrender, they told me that I could do community service instead of paying $1,500. I mean, the economy the way it is now, I can't pay $1,500.
Right.
Now, what do I do now? Do I tell them, hey, look, I want to do community service? Do I ask them, can I do community service? How do I handle this?
The district judge where those are issued from has the power to allow you to do alternatives to the fine. And they can give you time served for if you spend any time incarcerated, or they have the power to give you alternatives if they find that you legitimately don't have the financial resources. What a lot of them will do is greatly reduce the fines to something that's manageable and maybe add a community service requirement. But you have to contact the district judge where those were issued from.
All right. So now, what if I've been contacted by, a constable that say, "Hey, look, he just wants the money"?
Yeah, then you got a problem because you got to get back with the judge. The constable's just the collection agent. He can't change it or she can't change it. Only the judge can.
Okay. So then it will be in my best interest to call them.
Yeah, and if they're traffic tickets, you're going to get eventually PennDOT's going to suspend you for failure to pay as well.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So then, if I do community service, then they're gonna suspend my license because I just failed to pay.
No. If you do community service, the judge will show it as paid in his records. In other words, he or she will reduce what's owed and then mark them as satisfied.
All right. So what's the statute of limitations on some traffic tickets?
Well, if you're already convicted, there's no statute of limitations. They last forever. And that warrant will stay out. That fines and costs warrant will stay out for you. All right, Alex.
All right, so then. All right, thank you.
All right. Let's see here. Dan, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Is that for Dan?
Yeah, Dan, is that you?
Oh, yeah.
Happy holidays.
Same to you. I have, I guess, two related questions. One, if you're going to sell your house, what involvement should you have with the lawyer?
Okay.
And what are your thoughts on using a real estate broker or trying to sell on your own?
Two things. I'll address the lawyer issue first. Even if you're the seller of a home, a lot of people will say, well, all I have to do is write a deed, so the realtor said they'll take care of that. I don't really need a lawyer. Always have a lawyer at your closing, whether you're the buyer or the seller. A lawyer at the table can do things and knows the law of real estate in a way that other participants might not. And I'll give you an example of what comes up. You're selling the house, something happens, and the buyer's not satisfied with something, and the whole deal could fall apart, or they want you to escrow money, or they want something done. Your lawyer can advise you on those things. And in all deference to the realtors, because they're going to get mad at me for saying this, but a lot of times the agent just wants to get the transaction closed because that's how they're going to get paid. The lawyer it doesn't live and die on that transaction, so they're fine if it doesn't close for another week or two or it doesn't close at all. Now, to make the realtors happy and answer your second question, however, always sell with a broker unless you're a sophisticated person who's already bought and sold multiple properties. For what realtors charge, they do a couple services. Number one, they provide marketing. Number two, a lot of times they know the true value of the home and can better help you. And we find, believe it or not, most people although some people way overvalue their homes, most people, when it's time to sell, if they do it on their own, undervalue it, and they undervalue it to the point where even after the realtor's commission, they'll make more if they use a realtor than they would without a broker. So I always recommend it.
Okay.
All right.
That answers my questions very well, so thank you so much, Carl.
Thank you. Folks, we're going to go to break. When we come back from break, we're going to talk with Joe and Allie. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. I'm an attorney at law for those of you just joining us, answering your legal questions here on the air. The name of the show is Weekend Appointment. And as you know, go to weekendappointment.com, www.weekendappointment.com. Post your legal questions throughout the week or find my contact information. I want to take a couple questions from there real quick before we grab these callers. There was somebody posted, she got a PFA and now wants to get the PFA removed. Didn't really want to get the PFA, but was kind of forced into it by Children and Youth. Long story. You can read about it on the website. But her issue is when she tried to drop the PFA, her lawyer said, well, no, we can't do that. We've got to go for a hearing. And she said the PFA is interfering with the family life and the children seeing their father, etc. In my experience, this lawyer might not be following her instruction. In other words, it probably should have been dropped on her instruction. Sometimes lawyers decide that they know better than their clients and maybe sit on it just to make sure that maybe she's really doesn't need the PFA, or maybe this lawyer's just lazy, or maybe, and this sometimes happens, some judges will not withdraw or allow you to drop a PFA without coming into the courtroom to do it. So I can't answer that question exactly, but to tell you that your lawyer should follow your instructions, and they should honestly explain to you why they can't if they cannot. So when a client asks me a question and asks me to do something, I should do what my client wants me to do. If it's against their best interest, I should explain to them it's against their best interest. But at the end of the day, the client calls the shots. I'm just an advocate and a tool to help you use the legal system. But on the other hand, if I'm unable to do something you want me to do, or it's illegal or unethical, I should explain that to you. And if there's a problem with the court itself, I should explain, Judge so-and-so said, no, I can't do this. He says we got to come into court, and then he'll do it, or she'll do it. Yeah. So that's the answer. Ollie.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Ollie. Yeah, I have a question. It's I was renting, apartment for almost like 3 years. When
Okay.
I intended to move, I went to the the manager. I told him I'm going to move and something like that, and I know that I told him it's there is the things I have to write before 2 months,
Right.
and he told me, oh, you don't need to do that. I know, and he gave me the paper that that he received the keys. After a while, when I was in Minnesota, it's the collection agency. They send me the amount of $1,400. That because I didn't give them any notice.
And so now they're claiming they didn't get notice.
That what they said, and they told me if you have to pay $1,400 or we're going to send it to collection and we're going to destroy your credit.
Right.
Yeah, because I really fear to destroy my credit. I told them okay, I can pay make a payment, but I disagree strongly about this because I already gave the notice.
Ollie,
Yeah.
Never make a payment for something you dispute. By making a payment, the other side will argue that you've now acknowledged that you owed that money. So for you and everybody else out there, somebody claims you owe money and you're sure you don't make a partial payment. Don't let them bully you into it, because that's an old trick to get you to accept the debt, meaning that you now agree that it was owed. Did you make a payment to him, Ollie?
Yeah, I did, because they told me if not, we're going to send this to your credit, and we just I had a lot of correspondence with them.
Ollie, you need to get a lawyer on this right away.
Okay.
Yeah, get a lawyer to write them a nasty gram, and maybe they'll go away. If not, there's some things you can do, but you got to make a judgment call, because at this point it might cost as much to get yourself out of it, but it might not. So what we would do usually with a case like yours is I would start out by writing a few letters. If I can resolve it, great, you're ahead. If we have to go to court, though, it may cost as much as you owe, so we might just try to make a lump sum offer to them to make it go away for less than what they claim is owed.
Okay.
All right, Ollie.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being so patient. Ollie had been waiting a while, as some of the callers have to. They have 3 lines here, and sometimes I forget what order things are in, where we go into a break. Joe, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger. What's your legal question?
Yes, good afternoon. I got a little concerned as I was listening to you about the fact that, you do the right thing. You have a car. You're accepting the responsibility of it. And, of course, with that, you do get insurance. And as I drive throughout the years, I feel secure, of course, having that insurance.
Right.
But then there are folks who decide for different reasons, other reasons, not to carry insurance.
Right.
But as the years have gone by, I'm approaching 60, I've been hearing that a lot of folks are objecting to having insurance, especially since some of them feel that they've been driving for many years, they never have an event, so therefore they feel they can continue for many years to drive without insurance.
Right.
But this is my concern, because I've been hearing throughout the years more and more and more that folks are securing insurance, and when they get that card in the mail, they then call up and cancel it. So therefore, if we ever have an event, we're more or less left holding the bag, because if we do have an event with one of those people, then your insurance company, or rather my insurance company, then has to pay for the damages and such. And whenever you have an event, although the first one is usually doesn't result in an increase in your insurance, but should you have another one, because of somebody else's recklessness or carelessness, your insurance company is going to have to charge you more because they had a loss.
And Joe, let me give you 2 points I want you to put in your back of your head here too. If you don't carry collision and you get hit by an uninsured or underinsured motorist, then there's nobody to pay for the damage to the car. And if you get personal injury and you don't have uninsured, underinsured, then there's nobody to pay for the personal injury to you.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that.
So I want to make sure everybody knows to carry that, because that's how you protect yourself against those people that choose not to carry insurance. The good news is that it's a crime for them to do that, and they will get themselves in trouble when it's found out. The problem is, you're correct. There are a lot of people who decide to cheat the system, and they think they can get away with it. And I'll scare you on one more point. You ready for this one? In a lot of states, you don't have to carry insurance. And so, for instance, if you live in the great state of Virginia, you can pay $500 a year to the state, and the state then will issue you a certificate that you don't have to purchase insurance. And you may go, well, what's the $500 for? Well, Virginia legislature decided years ago that it was your right not to have insurance. But in order to encourage people to buy insurance, they said, here's your deal. You can buy auto insurance, or you can pay $500 not to carry it. But back when they set that, $500 was a lot more than most auto insurance cost. So now, if you get hit, and you don't just worry about the people you know who aren't carrying insurance, worry about the people who come from states where for $500, like Virginia or other states where they don't pay anything at all, they don't have to carry insurance. And then they hit you here in Pennsylvania, or they hit you when you're on the road traveling. So yeah, you got to have that insurance. But I agree with you, it's a problem.
Yes, but the flow of my thought, and to communicate to whoever is listening, that when a person does in fact cancel their insurance,
right?
Why doesn't the insurance company then be allowed to notify the Department of
They do notify the Department of Transportation
or the state police, and let it be known that this person with this vehicle with this plate number is driving illegally on the road.
That's the music. I'm sorry I got to cut you off, Joe, but I understand entirely. Folks, go to weekendappointment.com. Make sure you check out Laurel Run Outfitters. Ask Brian for a goose hunt. Tell him Carl sent you. I'll see everyone next week. Have a great, great holiday. Take care.